mother left when I was 14, and she did it like you cancel a subscription you forgot you signed up for. No fight, no goodbye, just gone. One morning she was there, the next her closet was half empty, and there was a $20 bill on the kitchen counter with nothing written on it. Not even my name. I stood there in my pajamas holding that 20 and I thought, okay. This is what I am worth to her. A tank of gas. Less than a tank of gas, actually, because gas was already almost $4 a gallon that year, and I was in 8th grade, and I did not know how to do anything except go to school and come home and try not to be too much trouble. My father. I'll call him that because biology doesn't lie, even when people do. He didn't leave all at once. He stayed in the house for another 4 months, which in some ways was worse. He was physically present the way furniture is present. He ate. He watched television. He went to work, but I had stopped existing to him in any way that mattered. I'd come home from school and say hi, and he would look at me like he was trying to remember who I was. Not unkind. Just absent. Like I was a ghost in my own kitchen. Then one Saturday morning in February, he sat me down at the table and told me his girlfriend, a woman I had met exactly twice, was pregnant. He said they were moving to Phoenix. He said I was almost 15 and practically grown. He said he'd set up a small account for me, enough for a few months of expenses, and that I could reach out to my aunt if things got hard. I asked him where I was supposed to go. He said I was resourceful. He left that same weekend. I sat in that house for 11 days before my aunt, my mother's older sister, figured out what had happened. She drove 4 hours and found me eating cereal with water because I'd run out of milk 3 days prior and hadn't wanted to spend the money. She cried. I didn't. I think I had already used up all my tears somewhere I couldn't remember. I moved in with my aunt and finished high school sleeping on a pull-out couch in her spare room that smelled like cedar and old carpet. She was kind. She was doing her best. She already had 2 kids of her own and a mortgage and a husband who traveled for work. I tried to be invisible. I got a job at a diner the week I turned 16, and I saved everything I could, and I made myself a rule. I will not need anyone who does not want to be needed by me. That rule kept me alive for a long time. College was community college first, then a state school on scholarship and loans. I studied nursing because I wanted something practical, something that would always pay, something where I could not be told I wasn't useful. I graduated in 3.5 years because I took summer classes. I got a job at a hospital in a mid-sized city 3 states away from where I grew up, and I built a life there, small and careful and entirely my own. I met my husband at a hospital fundraiser of all places. He was there because his firm had sponsored a table and he didn't want the seat to go to waste. I was there because a colleague dragged me. He was funny in the specific way that accountants sometimes are. Dry, a little self-deprecating, precise with words. His name is Garrett. We dated for 2 years before he asked me to marry him, kneeling down in our apartment kitchen with a ring he'd had made by a jeweler his grandmother used, and I said yes before he finished the sentence. We got married small. 40 people. A ceremony in a garden. My aunt walked me down the aisle. My father was not there. He did not know about the wedding because I had not told him. I did not have his phone number anymore. I had, at some point in my 20s, simply stopped keeping track of how to reach him. It didn't feel like a decision, exactly. It felt like releasing something heavy you've been carrying for so long, you forgot it had a name. Our daughter, Poppy, came along when I was 29. She was born in April, which meant the hospital room had this particular morning light that came through the window every day when they brought her to me. And I used to just hold her and watch it shift across her face and think, this is the thing I will protect. This is the reason all of it was worth it. Poppy is the kind of child who narrates everything. She will describe her breakfast cereal as though she is reviewing it for a food magazine. She asks questions about how airplanes stay up and why the moon looks different every night and whether dogs dream, and Garrett and I look at each other over her head sometimes, and I can see it in his face. How did we get so lucky? Her 3rd birthday was on a Saturday. Garrett had been planning it for weeks, not because we do extravagant parties, we don't, but because he finds genuine joy in the logistics of making Poppy happy. He had ordered a cake from the bakery she had once pointed at through a window and said, "That one, Daddy, that one forever." It was pink with small yellow flowers around the edges. He had set up a little craft station in the backyard with foam stickers and popsicle sticks. He had strung lights between the trees even though the party was in the afternoon. My friend group had come over. Two couples we've known for years, a few of my colleagues from the hospital, some neighbors with kids close to Poppy's age. It was relaxed in the way that good parties are when everyone knows each other and no one is trying to impress anyone. Poppy was in a yellow dress that she had insisted on wearing, even though I had a different dress pressed and ready. I let her wear the yellow one. You pick your battles with 3-year-olds. I was in the kitchen refilling a pitcher of lemonade when my neighbor Bex came and found me. Her face was doing something I didn't immediately understand. She said there was a man at the side gate asking for me by name. She said she didn't recognize him. She said he seemed, she paused, searching, insistent. I walked out to the gate and I saw my father. I had not seen him in 11 years. He was shorter than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown into someone who takes up more space. His hair was gray. He was wearing a collared shirt and holding a gift bag with cartoon animals on it. And for one very strange second, my brain glitched. It tried to make this make sense, to slot him into some category of person who would reasonably be here. It could not do it. I said his name. He smiled like I had welcomed him. He said it was good to see me. He said I looked wonderful. He said he had driven from Phoenix 8 hours because he wanted to be part of Poppy's birthday. I said, "How do you know about Poppy's birthday?" A said my cousin had mentioned it. He said Facebook. I want to tell you that I was calm. I wasn't, not inside. Inside there was this sound, like something structural had shifted. But on the outside, 11 years of nursing, of staying even-keeled when things are falling apart around you, of learning to separate what you feel from what you show. On the outside, I was very quiet. I said, "You were not invited." He said he understood that, but he was here now and he had brought a gift for his granddaughter, and could we not just… I said, "You don't have a granddaughter. You left your daughter when she was 14 years old. You are not a grandfather. You are a stranger holding a gift bag." He blinked. I think he had expected me to be flustered. I think he had counted on showing up being enough, the way a certain kind of person believes that showing up is always enough. He shifted tactics. His voice got quieter, more careful. He said he knew he hadn't been there. He said he had thought about it a lot. He said he was older now and he understood things differently. He said he wasn't asking for anything big, just a chance. I said, "Today is my daughter's birthday. You have 5 minutes to leave this property. You have 5 minutes to leave this property before I call the police and report a trespasser." He looked at me for a long moment. Then something in his face changed, and I saw it. The calculation, the pivot. He said he had spoken to a lawyer. He said that he had spoken to a lawyer. He said that he had reason to believe he might have legal grounds to pursue a relationship with his grandchild. He said he didn't want to go that route, but… I took a breath. I thought about that $20 bill on the kitchen counter. I thought about the cereal with water. I thought about my aunt crying in the doorway of that house. I said, "Please do. Please pursue every legal avenue available to you. And when you do, we can talk about child abandonment statutes and what it meant to leave a 14-year-old alone without legal guardianship and without adequate financial support. We can talk about that on record." I would love to have that conversation on record. He said he was her grandfather. He had rights. I said, "Grandparents' rights are not automatic in the state, and they require a pre-existing relationship with the child. You have never met her. You have no relationship. You are a man at a gate." By this point, Garrett had come to stand beside me. He didn't say anything. He just stood there. That's one of the things I love most about him. He knows when presence is the thing, not words. My father looked at Garrett. Then he looked at me. He said this wasn't over. I said, "Yes, it is. I'd like you to leave now." He left. He walked back down the driveway and got into a rental car and drove away, and I stood at the gate for a moment watching the street after he was gone. Bex came and stood with me. She didn't ask anything, she just put her hand on my arm. I went back to the party. Poppy was at the craft station explaining to a 4-year-old named Freddie that the foam star stickers were for decoration only and not for eating. I could hear Garrett at the grill. Someone had put on music. The afternoon light was coming through the trees exactly the way it does in late spring when the leaves are still that specific bright green before they darken for summer. I picked up a foam sticker shaped like a moon and sat down next to my daughter. She looked at me very seriously and said, "Mommy, Freddie ate one of the stars." I said, "Was it at least a good one?" She considered. She said, "It was a purple one. Those are okay." Garrett laughed from across the yard, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and that was enough. That was everything. My father called twice in the following week from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. The third call came from his attorney. A brief voicemail asking if I would be open to mediation regarding grandparental access. I forwarded it to our family attorney, a woman I had worked with when we bought our house, and explained the situation. She called me back within the hour. She was very calm. She said that based on what I had described, his legal position was extremely weak. She said that in our state, a biological grandparent seeking court-ordered visitation must demonstrate both a significant pre-existing relationship with the grandchild and that denial of visitation causes harm to the child. She said that a man who had never met a 3-year-old and who had no documented relationship with the child's parent met neither bar. She said that if he filed, she was confident we would prevail, and that the filing itself would cost him considerably more than it would cost us. She also said, and I want to be careful here, because this part still makes me feel something complicated, that if we chose to pursue a civil claim for child abandonment or emotional distress stemming from his actions when I was 14, that avenue was worth exploring. She said statutes of limitations had likely passed on some elements, but not all. She said she'd need to review the specifics. I told her to put together a letter. Just a letter, clear and documented, outlining our position and making clear that any filing on his part would be met with a counter-response that included a full account of the circumstances of my abandonment at 14. 3 weeks later, his attorney sent back a response saying that her client had decided not to pursue the matter further. That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement, just withdrawal. Like he was canceling something he had decided he didn't want anymore. I thought I would feel more when it was over. I spent time thinking about what I did feel, trying to be accurate about it. There was relief mostly. There was a kind of tired satisfaction, the way you feel after you finish something hard that needed finishing. There was not closure, not exactly, because closure implies something was completed, and I think what actually happened is that I simply confirmed what I'd already known for a long time, that the story he played in was not a story I was living in anymore. My aunt came to visit us the month after. She stayed for a long weekend. She and Poppy made pancakes on Saturday morning, and my aunt let Poppy add too many blueberries and they ate them anyway and said they were the best pancakes in the history of pancakes. I watched them from across the kitchen and thought about that pull-out couch that smelled like cedar, and how my aunt drove 4 hours when she found out what had happened, and how she never once made me feel like a burden even though I absolutely was one, and how there are people in your life who show up and people who don't, and the ones who show up are the ones who matter. My father chose, twice in my life, to walk away from something that needed him. The first time I was 14 and I had no say in it. The second time I was 32 and I held the gate closed myself. The difference between those two moments is everything I have built. Poppy doesn't know any of this. She is 3. She knows that her daddy makes excellent pancakes, that her birthday cake had yellow flowers on it, that the moon looks different every night because it's doing a slow turn and showing you its different sides, and that purple foam stars are okay to eat in a pinch. She does not know she has a biological great-grandfather who drove 8 hours and stood at a gate and thought that showing up was the same thing as being there. She will learn, when she's old enough to need to know, that those are not the same thing. They have never been the same thing. For now, she is 3 and she is eating foam stars. And she is safe and I am her mother. And I have made certain that the things that were done to me are not the floor she stands on. That is the only thing I ever wanted to build. And I built it. If you are listening to this and you grew up in a house where you were made to feel like an obligation, like a debt someone was paying off, like a line item in a budget they resented, I want you to know that you are not too much. You are never too much. The people who made you feel that way were not equipped for what they signed up for. That is their failure. It is not yours. You are allowed to hold the gate closed. You are allowed to be the person who decides who gets to stand in your backyard on a Saturday afternoon in the good light. I hope you have someone who shows up. I hope you have someone like my aunt, like Garrett, like Bex, standing beside you with her hand on your arm. And if you don't have that yet, I hope you're building it. I hope you know that it can be built, even from nothing, even from a $20 bill on a kitchen counter that meant less than it cost. It can be built. I know because I built it. I thought a lot about cause and effect since that Saturday afternoon, not in any abstract way, just in the very concrete way that life eventually teaches you when you're paying attention. My father made a choice when I was 14. He didn't make it in anger. He didn't make it in crisis. He made it calmly with a rental truck and a plan, and he left a kid alone with a $20 bill and the assumption that resourcefulness would fill in the rest. That choice set off a chain of things he never had to watch happen. The cereal with water. The pull-out couch. The years of making myself small so I wouldn't cost anyone too much. The rule I made, I will not need anyone who doesn't want to be needed by me. Which kept me safe and also kept me isolated in ways I didn't fully understand until I was well into my 20s. What I know now is that choices don't disappear. They travel. They become the conditions other people have to live inside. His choice became my childhood. My childhood became the thing I had to climb out of. Climbing out of it made me someone who understood, bone deep, what it means to actually show up for another person. And that understanding became the kind of mother I am to Poppy. So in some backwards way, he contributed to something good. Just not the way he imagined standing at that gate holding a gift bag with cartoon animals on it. There's no mystery about why he came back when he did. People like that don't return out of remorse. They return when they need something, an audience, a redemption they haven't earned, a relationship they can point to when things get uncomfortable for them. He wanted to be a grandfather without having been a father. He wanted the warmth without the work. That's not a reunion. That's an acquisition attempt. And I think some part of me recognized it immediately, which is why I didn't hesitate at the gate. There was no confusion in me. There was only clarity. I think about Garrett standing beside me and not saying a word. That's what real strength looks like. Not loud, not performing, just present. And I think about Bex putting her hand on my arm after. The people who actually love you don't announce it. They just appear in the right moment without being asked. And I think about Poppy at the craft table very seriously informing Freddie about the foam stars. She doesn't carry any of this. She doesn't know it exists. That's not an accident. That's every decision I made from the time I was 16 working a diner shift to save money, to the moment I held the gate closed and said 5 minutes. The protection I didn't have, I built into her life instead. That's what you do with the hard things. If you're paying attention, if you're honest with yourself about what happened and why, you stop the chain. You say, this ends here. Not because someone told you to, because you chose to. That's the only real power any of us have. Not over what was done to us, but over what we do next, over who we let through the gate, over what our children grow up knowing as normal. I chose good light and pink cakes with yellow flowers. I chose a husband who stands beside me. I chose an aunt who drives 4 hours when it matters. He got a letter from my attorney and the closed gate. Every choice lands somewhere. I just made sure mine landed somewhere worth standing in.